How's everyone doing today? Thank you so much for joining us here at System Source today for our webinar, Getting to Know Microsoft Teams Rooms in 2025. I appreciate everyone's time. I know we're looking at some weather today. So this webinar generally runs about 40 minutes. We'll try to keep it as short as possible, as we know everyone has different issues going on with the incoming snow. I'm Jon Bennett. I'm the Director of the Presentation Systems Department, or the Audiovisual Department here at System Source. And we'll go ahead and get started. All right, a little agenda for us today. We're going to start with just a short introduction on why Teams and Teams Rooms and what they can do to help improve your team's efficiency and communication. Go through a little bit of the differences between Teams and Teams Rooms, including some of the confusing licensing going on right now between basic and the paid Pro Teams Rooms. And we'll get into a little bit about the use of AI and different features that have come up over the years with Teams that can help your team, from how Copilot is integrated, what voice profile is and it does, intelligent camera. And then we'll talk a little bit about the new and upcoming features and the roadmap that we've seen in the past few months and coming for the beginning of 2025 here. And then a little short introduction on Teams appliances and how they fit into your spaces, how they can be used, and what spaces are good for Teams rooms and communications. And then at the end, we'll go through any questions that you have. Hope you're enjoying your pizza today. If you're having any issues or you haven't received your pizza, you can contact Julie. I'll give this slide a couple seconds here. Her email is on the screen there. She'd be happy to help out and try to get that figured out for you. So we'll give this a couple seconds just in case you haven't received your pizza, and then we'll move on from there. All right, and if you need that email address again, just let me know and I'll put it into chat for you. Couple housekeeping things today during the webinar. Audio is going to be in presentation mode until the end. It seems like we have a small enough group here today that we may or may not turn the audio on, but if you have any questions, please go ahead and share them in the questions tab of GoToMeeting. You can also share your thoughts in the chat tab. At the end of the webinar, we will be emailing out the presentation and the webinar recording. And once we're done here, you'll receive an evaluation. We really hope that you'll share your thoughts on today's webinar with us. We will draw from completed evaluations one gift card, and that'll be your choice of an Amazon $50 Amazon gift card or a $50 gift card from your favorite restaurant. All right, just real quick about who we are. System Source, we've been here for 43 years. We're a regional systems integrator, and we offer the people, processes, and tools to help you guys improve, maintain, and acquire IT and AV systems. Our team of 70 is often asked here to improve their IT and audiovisual operation maturity. Some ask us to train their staff in applications or technical topics for improved staff retention, more productivity, and lower help desk costs. We do hold virtual classes here like we're doing today from your home office, or public classes here in Hunt Valley. We can also host dedicated courses on your site. Careful setup of classrooms can be rented for private classes. Other clients rely on us for presentation rooms like we do here in the audiovisual department, including conference rooms, classrooms, boardrooms, auditoriums. These rooms are often built with video conferencing and digital signage like we'll be talking about here today. Improving IT infrastructure sometimes requires the expertise of our consultants here at System Source. We specialize in cloud migrations, systems management, virtualization, project management, and infrastructure design. One improvement you might seek from us is the better use of the cloud by hosting applications in our data center or at Microsoft Azure or Amazon Web Services. With improved systems come new maintenance workloads. We offer proactive support using managed services in our help desk and reactive support using support and service through the dispatch desk. When maintenance is done efficiently, monies may be available to acquire new equipment and refresh your systems. We've spent 43 years building strategic alliances with major computer hardware and audiovisual manufacturers. These relationships do allow us to provide you guys state-of-the-art systems, enhance productivity through both education and consistent performance, and through technical support and service. Business here was started here in Maryland in 1981 with Bob and Maury as a Computerland franchise. In 1991, we changed our names to System Source. In 2003, we purchased Connected Resources. In 2004, we acquired Oster Enterprises. This has allowed us to be very agile in the Baltimore space. We're privately held and locally owned, and the foundation here will match employee contributions into the community. And with 43 years in information technology, we have attracted some media attention, and that can be seen on our website. Like we're doing today, we have some more exciting upcoming webinars. I'll leave these up on the screen. All of these are available on our website. You feel free to sign up if any of these are of interest to you. All right, well, thank you very much. And we'll go ahead and get started on teams and teams rooms. I think we all know at this point, the world of work has been changing constantly for all of us since 2020 and beyond. With this, we've seen a real need for additional flexibility, and we've seen the rise of AI and how that may or may not be helping you in your daily life in the office and elsewhere. At the center of this, with these two forces, we're really kind of forced to embrace these ideas and try to figure out how to implement them through our daily workload. And this is where I think teams and standardization within the conferencing and connectivity really comes into play. Couple of metrics here that are very interesting, and they were interesting to me when I first saw them, is just how the speed of work is outpacing our ability to keep up. One of the terms that has been keyed by Microsoft is the teamwork tax. I think we've all seen many, many more meetings in the past 5 years than we've ever had to experience before. And this being all virtual has really put us in a position where we've had some growth pains trying to keep these connections together with our employees, and also seen a really, really large increase in security threats. We deal with this quite a bit here at System Source, being a managed service provider, helping our clients deal with these and the uptick that we've seen since 2020, 2022. This has really caused a situation where a lot of employees feel disconnected from their company when we're not at the office and we're not seeing our colleagues all day, every day. That does cause some issues. And it's really affecting our relationships within the company and our clients as well abroad. But with that being said, there's been surveys done where you can see here about 85% would be motivated by rebuilding these team bonds. And that's where we come in with, as IT professionals and trying to foster these through communication and how we go about this in our daily lives here. And with that being said, we're going to step into this new era of flexible work, and I think we've already all pretty much stepped into this era. And Microsoft Teams and Teams Rooms here are just one of the many options we have to make these experiences even better. Really creating a smarter workplace that scales to your company's needs and really fosters those connections between employees and making things a little more efficient. We now see these meetings transcending physical boundaries. We've taken this out of the conference room. We're now in, we may be at home, we may be on site, we may be in a hot desk, all these different places. And, having a solution that ties all of this together, and really brings out seamless collaboration and connections between people has become all the more important. And with that, as we're talking about teams today, is where we start to see the Teams ecosystem really come into play. From anywhere from, if you're familiar with Teams or if you're not familiar with Teams, the ability just to chat directly with your colleagues and your employees, to meet, whether it be a scheduled meeting or just an ad hoc quick call. And then to collaborate with everybody, to bring all this together and try to make ourselves feel a little bit closer by sharing documents, using whiteboard to edit and really drive that. And that's where the Teams ecosystem, as I said, comes into place. And we see the three big parts of the Teams ecosystems here. Teams Rooms that we're talking about today. Teams Phone, which could be a desktop phone that connects these together, and then just standard Teams and Teams Premium. As we talk a little bit more about Teams Room and the difference between Teams and Teams Room, Teams Rooms is where we're going to bring, the technology into a conference room that may have just been classically a projector, a display with a connection for a laptop, and allow our team to connect out to the individual desks, to the phones, and elsewhere from there. And all this really brings in flexibility, productivity, and engagement between employees. Teams Rooms is being used by 70% plus of the Fortune 500. I know personally from our department here, we're seeing it spread all throughout the Baltimore area. I think really we saw an uptick in Zoom when the pandemic first hit, but with all the advances that Microsoft has done and the growth of this ecosystem, we've seen a real explosion in the use of Teams throughout our customers here. As you can see, a couple examples down below of some of the Fortune companies that Microsoft is seeing Teams use in. So as we talk a little bit more about Teams Rooms, we really want to see how we can turn any meeting space into a smart space. And we see a couple examples here from large conference spaces, smaller conference spaces, and even individual desks. As we've talked about, fostering collaborative meetings and keeping things scalable. We'll talk a little more later about, where Teams Rooms fit. And the really interesting thing is Teams Rooms fits in just about any room, from the smallest 2-seat huddle room up to the largest boardroom. And we see that across our customers, and have really seen how this has helped everybody, bring a usable space together and keep everything consistent, allowing users to shift between any of these rooms and feel comfortable using as they go through. So with that, let's talk a little bit about the differences between Teams Room Pro and Teams Room Basic. I did see some questions in our survey that came out, and this is a very common question. I think anybody that's familiar with the Office 365 ecosystem have seen a lot of changes over the past couple of years as Microsoft kind of adjusts and figures out what's best for the consumer, or tries to figure out what's best for the consumer. And we've seen the same thing in Teams Rooms here. So we'll actually start on the right here. Teams Room Basic is a free license that's available through Office 365, and it is pretty much what it is. It's basic. It's allowing us to place and receive calls in Teams Rooms, so we can connect our hardware, use them as a video conferencing platform. You are limited to 25 rooms per tenant, so per 365 ecosystem. And it really does limit the management. So for smaller deployments, or if you just want to try it out in a space, Teams Rooms Basic is great for that. Now moving into Teams Rooms Pro, which is a $40 a month license per space and per resource, we not only get the same one-touch join that we had with Basic, but we're starting to see this is where the AI-powered feature sets come into play that we'll talk about in a little bit. Voice print, where Copilot comes in with being able to take meeting notes, meeting minutes, describe action items, live captioning, things along those lines. With that, you're also getting access to Whiteboard. Whiteboard is a very neat feature we'll talk a little bit about later that allows us to collaborate just like we were all sitting in front of a whiteboard, but through our computer screens. Front Row, which is a really neat feature for your larger rooms. We see a picture of a larger room it's a little small on your screen, but is using Front Row right now, and we'll see a larger image of that later, as well as advanced management. This is where your 365 admins are able to go in and really see the health of the rooms, push updates, make sure everything's running from that set. So with that, I'll leave this next slide up for any of you that are interested for a few minutes. I will be sending this slide out to anybody interested, actually, and everybody in the webinar once we're done here. That really gets down to the nitty-gritty of the differences between Teams Room Basics and Teams Room Pro. And what we can see with this here, as mentioned, we have the intelligent audio video up here, and all of it is in Teams Room Pro right now. We also see a real minimal amount of management capabilities within Teams Room Basic. and a minimal amount of engagement and some other things that we have through here. Whereas the full boat is listed in the $40 a month um, license for Teams Room Pro. So I'll leave this up here for another couple seconds if anyone's interested to read through it. Once again, I will send this out with the at the end of the webinar. All right, so we talked a little bit of how we're using Teams Room to foster collaboration, so we won't go too deep into this slide here. But now we'll get into a little bit of the AI enhanced audio and video features. With this, we have audio and video devices that automatically focus on the users and what really matters in the meeting. This can be a camera that finds faces within the room and splits them up on the screen. I know some people may be familiar with technologies like the Meeting Owl and other things along those lines. High quality noise suppression and bandwidth optimization. This really helps us keep the audio nice and clear. And one thing we know as audiovisual integrators and conferencing integrators is audio is number one. You know, it's great that we can see the room, but if we can't hear you clearly, we're really not getting the full what we need from that meeting. We also can improve identification and meeting content. So with this, and we'll talk about voice print and intelligent speakers, this allows Copilot to identify who's in the room. So we're used to sitting at our desks and we see a little screen of everybody that's in the meeting and their names underneath. Well, what happens when 7 people are in the same room together? And I may be sitting at my desk at home or on another site. With this AI and Copilot and intelligent speakers, this allows us to actually identify those 7 people that are in the room. And through meeting notes, through intelligent cameras, keep their names on the screen so we know who's speaking. And then the IntelliFrame and the video gallery is the same thing, where we may have a face on the screen, but now we can put a name on that face if there's 7 people in the room. So here's a little example of a IntelliFrame. We'll see a small video over here on the right. And with intelligent cameras, we see at the bottom of that video, as it loops through, we're seeing the full picture of the room, but that camera is being split up within that room and it's identifying who's there. This is a really, really neat feature. This can be done through intelligent cameras. So there are cameras with IntelliFrame built in. There are some cameras that are OEM that have some features that Teams goes. And as of this year, Teams is beginning to leverage the cloud. And to bring this outside of the dedicated hardware and allowing some of these features to go just through 365 itself. So I think this is one of the neatest features that's coming through Teams. And hopefully you guys will see some use cases in this, whereas there might be some return to office, or we're looking at larger rooms these days, that IntelliFrame will really help us out there. With IntelliFrame, another big chunk of this is speaker recognition. There are 2 parts to speaker recognition within the Teams ecosystem. The first is voice print. Voice print is a feature that Teams added last year that allows users, if you've ever done set up a Amazon Alexa, something like that, where it might have a feature that allows you to speak to it so it can better recognize your voice. It's the same thing within Teams. This can be done through the main Teams app. It can also be required by your admins if it's something that you want to adopt to the whole company, that allows Teams to recognize who you are within that 365 environment. So when you're speaking in any room you have, Teams will be able to know that that's you speaking. And then when that's added with IntelliFrame, that's when we see names come up at the on the camera images. But even better, when we start using Copilot, like we're using here at System Source, for meeting minutes, action items, it'll actually identify those users within the space. So when I have 7, 8 people in a room and I want to get the meeting minutes or action items from our meeting, instead of just a big wall of text, it'll start to identify who spoke, whose action items they are, and really help us in our day-to-day. We're using it here in our department quite frequently to get that documentation for when we're done and really make us more efficient. Um, with that, speaker recognition within a Teams room does require specific hardware. So if that's something you're interested in, please let me know. We'll put a member of our team in touch with you, and we'll discuss how we can bring speaker recognition and a teleframe into your rooms. All right, so I did promise you a little better view of front row. Front row is another neat feature that was released in the last year or so from Teams. In Teams rooms. This does tend to require an ultra wide screen display on the funny room, as you can see, but it really takes it so we can put all of the information on the screen at once and have a very, very effective and collaborative meeting with our end users. As we can see here, we can see the chat content, we can see the meeting content, we can see raised hands like we might at our desk right on the screen, and then a front row of who's in the room. This tends to cut a lot of the background out of all of everyone's cameras and allows you to really focus on and have eye contact with your end users, things along those lines. So this has been a very, very cool feature that's coming with Teams. I really don't think anybody's putting this much data on the screen, and it allows just us to keep everything in front of us at all times. All right, we talked about transcript. Here's a little more information on transcripts and how that ties in with everything. So we won't go too deep into this, but it will recognize and identify up to 10 people in a room. So this is going to be great for your medium-sized rooms. We're not quite there yet for full-size boardrooms, anything like that. But we find and we see that a lot of those medium-sized rooms are probably the more commonly used spaces that may or may not be the same within your organizations. But with a quick one-time enrollment, Teams is able to keep track of everybody within the space and give you guys your meeting notes, action items, and even identify people in captions. All right, those are the big ticket items in Teams and AI and how Copilot's kind of tying in. We've got a couple other things that are really fun coming up in Teams rooms within the next year. One we're very excited about, that if you do have any Teams rooms or you might be looking at Teams rooms, is local PTZ camera control. Sometimes in a larger room, you end up and you're really going to need a more professional style camera, pan tilt zoom, RoboCam or robotic camera that some of you may know them by. And until recently, we haven't been able to build that directly into the Teams ecosystem and Teams panel. So that's coming in May of 2025. That's going to give you a little bit more control over your larger rooms. Occupancy status on Teams panels. I think we've all been in a space where, you may have heard the term zombie meeting before. Let's say a room is booked, but the users don't show up, they forget to cancel the meeting, it's still booked on your calendar. We're going to be able to use the occupancy sensors on most Teams panels to affect those meetings to the point where, let's say if no one enters the room within 15 minutes, we clear the space and we let the rest of the organization know that that room's available now. This is really going to keep your utilization of your rooms up, and make sure that when people need to meet, they know exactly where they can and can't meet. Live transcriptions in Teams rooms. We've talked a little bit about transcriptions today. We do see that in Teams quite often. That is coming in Teams rooms for Windows this March. So keep an eye out for that one. As I said, we're using that quite a bit here on our standard Teams, and we're very excited to see that come to Teams rooms for Windows. Another feature that has been missing that we're excited to see, and it's actually rolling out right now, is start and stop recording in Teams rooms. That feature has been available on Teams for quite some time. But until now, you've had to join a Teams room meeting with a Teams device and record from there. And then I think another really exciting thing that we've seen a rollout and a lot of customers really enjoy that came out late last year is the ability to turn these rooms when they're not in use into digital signage. If any of you are familiar with digital signage, this can be anywhere from just displaying company information, marketing, what's going on in the building. We see this a lot in lobbies. We see this a lot in elevator lobbies, but Teams is now giving us the ability to put this content up in our conference rooms. So you may have glass walls, people may be walking by your conference rooms, and we can display any amount of information on that screen while that screen's not in use. So we really put that technology to use even when you're not meeting in the spaces. If you have any other questions about that, please let us know. We're happy also if you'd like to join our Teams group here to keep you filled in on what's coming with Teams and Teams rooms as we get the information. It's an ecosystem that is constantly changing, generally for the better, and we're happy to share that with our customers. So now we'll touch a little bit on the devices in the space. Now we kind of have a general idea, and I know this is a very quick overview of Teams rooms on some of the things Teams rooms can do for us. But how do we bring Teams rooms into our spaces? You know, what is this equipment, um, and how can it help you? Um, so Teams rooms are very flexible. Teams rooms can be as simple as a integrated speaker bar under your display. One and done. It's a camera, it's microphones, it's speakers. And as we see here, the Teams room interface or the Teams room panel. That's really going to be the heart of your room. The best thing about Microsoft being in control of this ecosystem is that no matter what manufacturer you go with, what equipment comes out, this panel is going to be standard across all manufacturers. This allows you to be flexible and agile in either what's available. I think we've all may have seen in the IT world over the past 5 years, issues with shipping, manufacturing, things like that. So regardless of who you choose or who's available at that time, your interface and your heart of the system is going to look the same to all of your end users, allowing your end users to shift through the organization, walk into a room and be very familiar with the use of that room without having to go through training, without having to go through another manual or have a different one-sheeter guide on the table. Everything's going to be standardized. And with that, those are the purpose-built solutions, but we also have flexible solutions. We start to get into larger rooms that may not fit just a standard speaker bar or a small camera. And as we spoke about, we need robotic pan-tilt zoom cameras. We need larger microphone systems, whether they be in-ceiling microphones, tabletop microphones. We have Teams kits that are available to be flexible to add these peripherals outside of that manufacturer's ecosystem to make these large custom rooms for you, to give you the best experience possible. And that's how Teams fits into just about every meeting room and every size that you can see. And here's just a little example of a couple of different room layouts. From on the left, the smallest huddle rooms. This is a 5-seat. We go down as far as 1 to 2 seat, whether you need just a quick, call it a phone booth, all the way up to the larger boardrooms and the more classically styled conferencing rooms that we may have seen in the past. So this foundation allows us to configure Teams rooms for just about any scenario, and giving you the benefit of that one-touch join. To go back to here, as we can see on this panel, one-touch join, these rooms become resources on your Office 365. When it's a resource, it's a schedulable resource. So your end users will go out and say, I want to schedule the boardroom for a meeting. When they walk into that boardroom, they're going to see the schedule on the side of that Teams room panel. And right there where we can see this person touching, there'll just be a big join button. So the users can walk in, hit the start meeting and the join button, the room boots up, the cameras come on, and the meeting's going. We take all the headache out of having to open a laptop, find the meeting in your calendar or connect to the meeting that way. It's one and done. They walk in, touch the screen, and they're off and they're using the space. So here we can see a couple of the different options we've spoken about here, from modular. Flexible spaces on the left that can include different types of speakers, cameras, microphones, and then a panel somewhere in the room, to a fully integrated device like the speaker bars we spoke about, where we're seeing microphones, speakers, cameras, and the Teams room ecosystem all built into a single device that can hang underneath or over top of the TV, to really streamline installation and integration. Another really neat feature and device here in the Teams ecosystems are touchboards. We may have spaces that either you may have 3 rooms, but you don't want to commit to 3 Teams room systems. A touchboard is a great option for that. They can be put on carts and rolled into different spaces, plugged into the wall, and then we can make any meeting room a Teams room at a moment's notice. These also really do enhance the collaborative functions of whiteboarding by being touchscreen devices. So not only can we meet through these devices, we can edit documents, and save those collaborative files here to send out to the rest of the team as we work. So we've talked a lot about Teams rooms, but what happens when we walk outside of the Teams ecosystem if we do commit to a team space, whether it be Zoom, WebEx, GoTo like we're on today, and that's when we get into BYOD devices and BYOD spaces. With just about every Teams room on the market right now, we have the option to bring your own device or bring your own meeting into that space. This allows an end user to walk in with their laptop, plug in a USB cable, plug in a USB cable and HDMI cable, depending on the technology on their laptop, and utilize those in-room resources for any number of conferencing platforms, or as I like to say, whatever the flavor of the month is, or whatever your customers are using. So if you're mainly Teams house and all your end users are working through Teams, but you may have a customer or a colleague from another company that's using Zoom, you have this flexibility in these spaces to come in and utilize them for those other meeting platforms. Now, those do all happen through your laptop. So this is going to be the more classic style of sitting at your desk and connecting to a meeting, but you will get the microphones, the cameras, the speakers, and all the devices that you've invested in the room to be able to utilize in all those platforms. We find this this really keeps you flexible. I don't remember the last time I put a room in that didn't have the bring your own meeting functionality, and just for those times that you need it. Now, outside of that, a couple of things that Teams does do, and I think they're most of the manufacturers starting to play nice, is that we're seeing some interconnectivity. So there are some options on the back end to do direct calls to Zoom through Teams, WebEx, things of those natures. So our team is definitely experienced in that and can help you with that if it's something of interest to you. But generally what ends up happening is that when you're walking outside of the Teams ecosystem, you're not getting the full functionality of Zoom or WebEx. You're getting basic conferencing through there. And once again, I missed a slide there. So this goes on a little bit about the flexibility to join these spaces directly through the Teams room. And that's direct guest join is how Microsoft is describing that. A little bit more in depth on the really neat touch boards we just spoke about. This is Microsoft's touch board, the Surface Hub 3. They are up to the Surface Hub 4 now. I think what's really cool about their ecosystem, the touch board here, is this cart that they offer with it. They've partnered with APC here to include a battery backup on the cart. So you no longer need to even plug this into the wall. This can be moved throughout your organization into any space without having to worry about, can I connect to the AC power? It's Wi-Fi enabled, so we're going, not having to plug into Ethernet. This is a truly mobile conferencing platform. So really cool technology here. A lot of customers that have used this to really enhance just different spaces, lobbies, things like that, where you may need a kind of a flex space and turn those into conference spaces without a classic full installation. So outside of Teams room, we do have a lot of other connected devices. I think one of the a very neat feature here, and we've seen this through Teams and even outside of Teams to just O365 or scheduling panels. You may have multiple conference rooms in your space, and when you're looking for that space to meet with your team, you may have met in the hallway and say, hey, let's go grab a conference room and talk about this. If a lot of these rooms are in use, you may be searching. With these room capacity notifications and these scheduling panels, This allows us to place a panel outside the room that tells you if the room's in use or is not in use. It allows you to schedule the room and see the upcoming schedule of the space. A lot of companies are now using this so you can do a quick look down the hallway and see if you have a green room. If anyone's been in one of the parking garages at the airport, and you drive down the aisles and you have the red and green light, very similar circumstance here, where I can just look right down the hallway, see if there's a room that's not in use. We can go ahead, we can meet, have our quick collaborative meeting, and not have to worry about going back to the desk, finding a conference room that's open, booking that conference room. I can do that all from outside the door. All right, so last but not least, we'll talk very briefly about the management side of teams, and what enhanced management can do for you and your IT team. So with this, once you're in Teams Room Pro, we do see the ability to have automatic updates, problem detections, and the ability to do some resolution, whether it be reboots, firmware, things like that, at scale from one spot. This also gives you access to the settings best practices list that Microsoft is there to help you guys figure out how to set these rooms up and what are the best settings to keep you secure and keep you moving on a day-to-day basis. With that, you get the Microsoft, what we know, the high level of security that Microsoft has with threat protection and verified updates. These updates will run, and they can be set to run on off times to keep your rooms always up to date. And we know how important that is these days as the world is changing and we find security vulnerabilities, phishing, things along those lines. So that gives you a peace of mind to know that these devices, just like your Windows machines, will stay up to date and stay as secure as possible. With this also, we get data from these spaces. Data is a very, very important thing these days to let us know how these rooms are being used, what rooms are being used. If you're in a larger organization, and you may have to make decisions on, where budgets are going. Do I need to invest in small huddle spaces? Do I need to invest in more larger spaces? By allowing Microsoft and 365 to give you this data on what's being used, what's not being used, this can really help shape those decisions. If I see that, my large rooms are used 90% of the time, that can help push us towards the idea that, maybe we need to invest in more large spaces. Same with smaller huddle spaces. With this, we can see a little bit of the other abilities here. Remote access. If anybody is in the IT or IT support world, I think we've all been to a place where you might get a call that someone's having trouble using a space, and you might have to run halfway across the building to go over and give them a hand to get them back up and running. With remote access, which came out last year, this allows you direct access to that Teams room panel from your desk, allowing you to help your end users without having to leave, and allows you to get back to doing what you're doing. Insight reporting, just to see, as we said, the data that we're getting back from Teams, whether it's incidents in the spaces, the room's not working, updates, things along those lines. And now in 365, you can see the panels as well. That allows us to manage those panels and make sure they're up, running, and all across the board. And anybody that's in government, GCC is now pretty much fully integrated with Teams rooms. So that is available. It was not available for some time for GCC customers, but now Teams rooms are pretty much fully available there and all the management features. For those of us that may have more spaces, Autopilot is another very neat function that allows us to deploy very, very quickly within the space, allowing AI and allowing 365 to go ahead and set these rooms up and get them up and running for us at the click of a button. All right, and just one last slide here of the management portal. And we can see here some information that the best practices screen on the left there. Some of the health signals we can see from account management and sign-ins, who's signing in. We all know this is very important these days to see when and where these sign-ins are happening. So if someone is trying to get into your devices, you'll see that. the operating system, firmware, and apps that are running on it, configuration settings, all the way down to connectivity and outages. You know, do I come in, do I see on my dashboard that a Teams room is down, and then I either reach out to us or your vendor, or go down and see what's going on with those spaces to keep your uptime at a maximum. All right, and as I promised, I tried to keep this a little short for you guys today. I know it's a very weird day with the snow, and we're seeing all sorts of things happening in the Middle Atlantic region. So at this point, if you have any questions, please let us know. We've got quite a few people in here, so I don't think we're going to open up the microphones today. But just a reminder, there will be a survey out at the end of this. Please, we'd really, really love your input, and let us know how we did today. And for anyone that submits a survey, we will be drawing one winner from those randomly for either a $50 gift card or a $50 gift certificate to your favorite restaurant. So. But other than that, thank you very much for coming today. I'll hang out here for a couple seconds if anybody has any questions and wants to put them in chat. But beyond that, I hope you guys stay safe, stay warm, and have a good rest of your week.